Welcome to the 100X Entrepreneur podcast. And today I am super excited to be talking to Amanda Kroener and Adam Kroener, who together co-founded Carbliss back in 2019 in order to make available a better tasting, no carb, absolutely fabulous cocktail in a can. And I'm here to find out more about their story, how they did it, and to ask them to tell it like it is. And each of them is going to have their own say here. So we'll see how that gives you a much better rounded picture of this co-founding team and their 100X achievements. Before I start the questions, I want to say that the founding story up to 2025 is in the book, The 100X Entrepreneur, and we'll be revisiting some of that right now and then looking ahead to the achievements in the year to come. So first question, and I will let you two decide which one of you wants to answer it first, is looking back now from the place you have achieved, and congratulations on that. And again, thank you for being here to tell your story in your own words. So what was it like when you first started Carbliss? Every startup has something that doesn't work out for the founders. What were some of the most memorable year one, year two, year three highs and lows for you? And how did you overcome the challenges you inevitably encountered in those years?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, we've got a little bit different takes on this. I'd say we probably will agree on both, but it's just our optic tends to lend us to different experiences. The thing I'll start with is the realization that when you start a business, no matter what people say, nobody's going to love you like you do. And what I mean by that is going to talk about consultants. So we had a desired strategy of going backyard to backyard, which was adopted from Craig Culver, another Wisconsin company. And as we brought in consultants from the beverage alcohol world that we didn't know anything about, they were like, oh, Adam and Amanda, yeah, I guess that makes sense to go to Minnesota and Illinois if you're in Wisconsin. But did you know between Texas and California and Florida and New York and, that little city of Chicago, there's 21x the population as comparison to those other places. That's where everything gets sold. That's where you need to go. And so in the course of those 2 years, we had a few consultants tell us the same thing. And they kept, again, this wasn't what we wanted to do, but they're the smart ones that were in the industry. So we listened. And it did not go well. I would say 99% of the markets that they opened up, we ended up retracting. When we finally brought in somebody who was from the industry, understood the vision, but then they had a playbook to be able to act on, to be able to make us go backyard to backyard. And that's going to go back to nobody's going to love you like you do. Because for their business, nobody's going to love them like they do. And they have a need for their business. And the learning curve that I had was I didn't ask enough questions. If you get me one PO and we load in, that's great. And then they consider themselves as doing a good job. But if we're not talking about rebuy and repurchases and brand growth, then I don't win in the long term. And we both won in the short term, but I'll probably lose more in the long term. So that was, I think, one of the biggest things that we learned a few times the hard way is that, kind of do it ourselves, but then learning from it rather than taking somebody else's advice, because it's not their business, it's ours.
Great. Amanda.
So I would say that just the way we are answering these questions kind of describes who we are. So I am intrigued that he answered it with kind of sales tactics. Back in 2014, I was VP of an energy efficiency firm, and I hired Adam to be a salesperson. So through and through, we have our very strong own identities. And my background is financial. So my answer to this question really is relating around cash and bootstrapping the business. I'd say I tie all of our highs and lows in the beginning years to trying to make sure we had enough cash for payroll 2 weeks later. There's times where we didn't pay Adam for multiple months just to make sure that everything that we can make it through. This is a very cash intense business with the amount of inventory, and we wanted to bootstrap it as long as we possibly could. So things got tight. We slowly increased our bank ability, and that always limited us. Our sales were always limited by how much cash we had, which in turn was how much inventory we could make and get on the shelves. So between the manufacturing issues and losing basically everything that we had put in for our savings and having to kind of rebuild, we learned so much. And again, there's those memes about entrepreneurs where like every 10 minutes you're feeling a different emotion. And I feel like that was definitely us. And mine was usually related to cash. Or like another invoice would come in and like, oh my gosh, I thought I had this figured out. So that's my answer.
That sounds like all in one, what I have heard from so many of the 100X founders, because so many of them, all of them have emphasized that focus on financial discipline and cash, and especially if you want to bootstrap or really minimize the venture capital that you need to raise. And you are in a very tough industry. I'm not here to tell you that, you know that already, right? But your success has been phenomenal in an industry where it usually the success stories are very highly funded and
There was a
deep pocket.
point in the beginning where Adam really dove all in head first, learning everything he could about fundraising. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, we're not doing that. At one point, you were going down the road of factoring, and I was like, there's no way. Like, I will find a better solution. Please, we can't do that. But all of that, like now we are ourselves angel investors for other startup businesses. And because he did that, now we can use it for other things. So maybe at the time I was like, stop wasting your time. We need to focus on other things. It's worked out now that we can use it in a different way.
Great. And thanks, Amanda. That's a great segue too. I'm going to like fast forward from those lessons learned and how it looked to both of you somewhat differently at the beginning to getting on the path to this really high velocity growth. And Adam, when we first talked, I still remember you said that March 2022 became your favorite month ever because
And I know exactly what you're going to say.
that was the month when you turned that corner into profitability. And then by the end of the year, you were solidly standing on that profitable peak and ready to grow. So, what were some of the key decisions and strategies in that moment from managing cash so carefully and bootstrapping and meeting all those early challenges to profitability, and then you could see some milestones for high velocity growth? Can you talk about the decisions that drove that?
So it actually does go back to the first point about wanting this backyard to backyard piece and the patience and methodology to do so. And so a lot of times we summarize it with our business plan is inch wide, mile deep, rather than a mile wide, inch deep. And when you think about all the financial discipline that Amanda was explaining, if you're gonna get a really big snowball to go down a hill, you've got to start with a small one, right? And you're going to compound it, but you can only compound it with snow that's right there. You can't grab snow from 20 different spots to make a snowball. And that's really been the way that we've gone about scaling. The benefit as we get bigger and we continue to do that, the pie is bigger, but it's for how small and new of a business we are. The new markets become a lot more predictable because we already have this large base and we're just adding on these geographies. I'd also say that as we've scaled, it's been a model that we've fine-tuned, but it really hasn't changed too much for the last 3 years, which makes it a lot easier to be able to continue to grow.
And I would say we've continued to focus on very organic growth versus huge national sponsorships and marketing dollars that maybe would go wasted if somebody hadn't tried the product first. So we have been really focused on how do we also scale the brand in a way that keeps us very personable. And we do that through our team. And then even extended from that is our ambassadors. So we have over 700 1099 contractors. And those are the people that you see at grocery stores and liquor stores and events, sampling customers and bringing them into the brand and sharing the story and making it very personable. And that's unique. In the beginning, we tried to hire third-party different companies and they'd show up, read the piece of paper. Then when they got out of the car, try to figure out who Carbliss is. They never heard of us. They represent 5,000 brands. And these team members solely work for Carbliss and they understand who we are and they love the product.
They only sign up because they love the product generally. Mm-hmm. As where if they work for the other agency, it's for a paycheck. This one, they love the brand and the product and they get a paycheck to do probably what they would do at the bar anyways, which is tell everybody how much they love Carbliss.
So that number is just growing and growing and growing. And that means that's that many more people we can touch at a distance with the brand.
And I love that. I love that you have, wow, did you say, Amanda, 700? 1099.
It could be more than that now. That's the latest I had heard, but that could have been a couple of months ago.
And so that's been the people who love to drink Carbliss. And I also want to dig in a little bit because of what you both said there about love and enthusiasm and really knowing the product. Because what has impressed me, not just in our conversations earlier that went into the book story, I am now a follower of you on social media. And my favorite thing to see that makes me smile is those big checks that you're giving to your employees, right? They're smiling, you're smiling. I love it. And tell me about the culture and how I know you worked from the very beginning to create this loyal, responsible, independent decision-making culture. And I love seeing you celebrate it in this way. That's hard for a small company, bootstrapping, budget that kind of money to reward employees over and over again. Tell me how you made that decision, why you made it, and how is it paying off for you?
Well, the decision, it's
another Adamism.
Yeah, it's a positive story, but it kind of comes from a somewhat negative place. I worked in manufacturing for a lot of years, and there are people, that might work at a place for 20, 30, 40 years. And a lot of those people might have 3, 4, 5 weeks of vacation. And there'd be the people that are like, I haven't taken a day of vacation in 3 years. And they are the crabbiest mother, what, in the place. And everyone's like, please take a vacation. So I'm then going to correlate that with, I am blessed to have a wife who holds me accountable. So if I'm in a funk, I think we have enough awareness within our relationship that I might not accept it immediately when she says it, if she asks me a question about where I'm at mentally, but it's enough to go, okay, what am I doing if she's asking this question? Right. And so there's been a few times where we've taken a weekend because we've just been doing something for a long time. She's in my corner to do that. I can't guarantee that everybody I'm going to hire is going to have that. So the thought process was, how do we give back to the people who are giving to us, give them a chance to relax and unwind? And I'm going to go back to manufacturing. If I said, hey, I'm going to send you to Mexico for 2 weeks, somebody would be like, oh, well, thanks, but you don't give me enough vacation, you know? So tried to take any reason out of it as we could. So that $5,000 check, it was meant to be like an all-inclusive trip for two, somebody and their significant other. You can take your friend if you want. And then we also give them a week. So if they have 3 weeks of vacation, that actually becomes their fourth week. So it's a pretty significant outlay. Now, Amanda mentioned she's financial. So convincing her out of the gate was not super easy. As far as the way I thought about it was, for us to budget, our first year we had 3 people. So for us to budget $15,000 was betting on those people still being there and, really the business continuing to move. Sargento is right up the road from us, a very big, awesome brand. And I think they have like 2,000 people. And the way I was thinking about it is, I don't want to think we should do this in 3 years, because if I'll use Sargento as an example, $5,000 times 2,000 people, that is a $10 million line item. Now, if you've planned for that your entire way, it makes it a lot more obtainable because it's always been part of the plan. If Sargento wanted to do that now, where's the $10 million coming from? So it was more the belief in that, as we build it, since we're already planning for it, we're just going to figure it out and make it work. What has that done for our business? We've got 80, maybe 85 people. The number changes daily, so please don't judge me for not knowing that. We've let 5 people go, and only 1 person has quit ever. And so I think that is part of the greater piece of the culture that makes people want to stay, because they're heard, they're recognized, and we still want them to relax.
I would add that when we started this business, I had no idea how much travel would come with it. We've always worked in industries and businesses where you go to work and come home at night, for the most part. And I'd say 2 to 3, maybe even more than that, of having this business was our relationship of Adam being gone majority of the time.
80% probably.
Like leave Monday, come home Thursday night. And that was really, really hard on me as a spouse. I couldn't travel as well. We've got little kids. And so we do have a lot of team members that travel often. They have families and spouses. And so this also gives us the ability to thank them and let them travel with whoever it is on our team, and get to experience that a little bit as well. Because it's tough to be on the other end supporting your spouse when they are the ones that, love the business and are putting everything into it. And so they can understand it as well.
That's great. A great joint story. And keep doing it, because it's the best picture on LinkedIn every time I see it.
Thank you.
And now I would like to, if you don't mind, looking ahead a little bit. I know you have planned, you have succeeded, you have grown and grown. Adam, you again, when we first talked, told me that you were planning to, take longer to become profitable. And then every time you set a milestone, you've achieved it. So I'm super curious, what are your milestones for the business in the coming year? And I hope you'd like to share a little bit about your personal milestones and the professional growth that you'd like to achieve in the year ahead.
I think for milestones, yeah, profitability came pretty quick. That focus did shift to, as we had more sales, shifting to more gross profit, which, now when we look at competitive companies, we've got a very strong bottom line, which the nice part for us is knowing that we starved for cash for 3 years. Now we can grow on our terms. We don't have to count on somebody else, which is a very great position to be in, because I think it helps us make more logical, sound decisions as a business, because we do it for the right reasons for the business, not for the quick buck. So for the next year, I mean, it's kind of boring. We've kind of built this machine of rinse and repeat, and so it's keep the machine running and add more states. So we just added our 19th state. We're adding our 20th here in the next month, and then we might do like a few more next year. And that's still kind of being finalized by the sales team. I think around 5 or 6 is our target. But it goes back to if we don't feel like we're an inch wide, mile deep, then we don't expand. So if something is a hiccup, we'll stop. If something goes really well, we may accelerate faster. Sorry, that's kind of a boring answer. I'll just kind of keep it
No,
What personally, I
most
don't know what your answer would be.
most
Personally,
entrepreneurs
you
would be like killing to be able to give that answer, truly, right? It sounds like you've done what you set out to do, and you have that path ahead mapped out. So great.
Yeah.
Amanda, you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I would just add, with that growth, we're getting spread further and further apart from our team, is just maintain the culture that we've focused so heavily on as we continue to grow, keeping that a priority, keeping everybody as close knit as we possibly can, so no one feels like they're on an island, even if they're in another state all by themselves. It's the only way we'll continue this the way we have, is if we can maintain that culture, which the bigger we get, the harder that is. There's more policies that are required. Every state has its own rules that maybe we don't want to put in place, or our initial benefits were even better than that. So the bigger we get, the more kind of limited we start to become based off of external things. But we want to keep the culture as strong as we can.
Great. And that's a fundamental pillar of how you've grown the company. I know that. Any personal, professional goals that you want to share? Not going to push it, but if you have anything you want to put out there.
So my wife is a very kind soul.
I know what you're going to say now.
As a child, my first business that I failed at was a business that was correlated to like cars and motorcycles, which has been my passion since I was a little child. Been going to the local racetrack since I was 2. I had an offer to race in a series with another local business owner and a professional that's now my coach. So we did a test race in Sebring, and it's really just completing the season. We want to be competitive, but it's also the last few years have been kind of, I was reflecting with a gentleman at lunch today. The last few years of business, although I'm not going to say there's not hiccups, there's a lot of hiccups, but from the general macro of the business, it's been running on this machine. So I got a big slice of humble pie and of getting into this thing that I've loved, and I wasn't as good at it as I wanted to be. So just completing the season with the partner, and I think honestly, Amanda talked about the travel. We are homeschooling our kids now so they can travel with us. So that's the me personal. The family personal is probably just being a more intentional and more present father and husband.
So I just finished up my master's. And so I'm taking a break from like professional growth. Hopefully I can impact more people with that degree. But I am going to be starting to do some home flipping. We've been renovating our home for the last 2 years, which is felt like a part-time job. But I've had so much fun, and we're done. The house is done, and I'm not ready to stop designing and building with this contractor that we formed a relationship with. So we are going to go down the path of doing some things in our community to modernize different homes, and I'll be able to use that design kind of skill that I've loved. So totally
Wonderful.
different, nothing to do with the business, but a kind of a creative outlet for me.
And she's good at it, so it's fun for me to see it's been this opposite thing because with Carbliss and like the label design, the way that we've gone about things is I create and she edits. And the interesting thing when it comes to the home stuff, like she has this vision that transparently I can't understand the way she articulates it. Bless our contractor's soul because he gets it. But it's been like a gap where she has this vision, and I'm like, now the beautiful part, similar, she does the opposite with me in the business. She says she wants to do it. I'm like, I can't really visualize it. I don't understand it, but I know if you're touching it, by the time it's done, it's going to look awesome. So go ahead and run with it. But it's been interesting because it's the opposite of really how the business piece has been.
Well, one of the things about, again, all of the 100 X founders that I've been privileged to talk to is they want to grow, they want to learn. They're not stopping. So it sounds like
We're serial entrepreneurs, right? That's what they call us.
serial entrepreneurs, but also not stopping in their lives to just
Sure.
the business. And I love hearing that that's how you're evolving too. And congratulations on finishing your master's. That's a big thing.
Thank you.
All the
I think
other
I got
things.
half of it in the passenger seat of the car.
So I'm going to wrap up with one final question I like to ask all of my guests because you are a model, you are the aspirational entrepreneurs that you're bringing this, you can do it too vibe to so many of the readers of the book and the viewers of the podcast. So, okay, face to face here with both of you. Amanda, I'd like to start with you with just what advice? You must get tons of aspiring founders and small business owners asking you this question all the time now. What advice do you give to people who want to scale their businesses and keep growing?
I would just state that everybody has an excuse of why it's not the right time, and it's never going to be the right time. And if it's not a little bit scary, if not maybe a little bit more than a little bit, then something's wrong. It should be. It should create a little bit of fear. You want that. It's going to be the driver, the motivation. It's going to keep you on track. But if you never get started, somebody else will.
Great, good advice. And I love that saying out loud. It should be scary. If you're doing something really daring and ambitious, if you're not scared, like maybe you're missing something.
Yes.
Adam, what advice do you give?
Well, so it was interesting when I was thinking about this question. If you were to just say what advice, typically my advice is don't take advice. And the reason is like if Amanda and I were separate and not married and we were both going to start this business, if we were to get advice, the way we would take it and process it and do with it would be two polar opposite things. And the way the person who's giving the advice would generally have done it way different. And so that makes advice very challenging because we don't know the place that it's really coming from. We don't know all their years of experience and all this stuff. It's just a very succinct line of this is what you should do. Said another way, you can often at least ask the question about like, tell me about a time when you were in a position like this to try to understand where their mindset's at. But you furthered it with saying, how do you give advice on scaling in a sustainable way? And it might mirror what Amanda said, but do the hard thing and do it right. When we think back to what Amanda was talking about, I had created spreadsheets on raising money and what the cost of equity would be, I don't know that I was really pushing too hard on the equity or like fundraising. I did for a bit. And then factoring, I was pushing pretty hard. And that's a daily, because we were out of freaking money. It's a daily interest rate that is advertised very low, but monthly it's very high. Let's say it's 30% interest. That's super high. So then the way I would try to convince her, I didn't convince her, we never factored, is I would take what the cost of equity would be, right? So if we factor at 30%, that's great, but we only have to do this for 4 months. But if I gave away a point in equity, this is what it's going to be worth in a year or two. But Raising money would have been the easy thing. Digging in, managing your finances, knowing where every dollar goes, managing the ins and the outs on payments and debts, and just selling more product in the places we were. That was the hard thing, but it was the right thing.
That's wonderful advice. And Adam, you have coaching in your future because you prefaced that advice with, I'm not going to give you advice because you have to do it yourself. What every good coach has to say, right? I'm going to help you figure out what you really want to do next. So this has been a terrific conversation. I can't wait for Carbliss to arrive in my neighborhood. It'll probably be a little bit lower on your list for expansion, but I'm keeping my eye out on the East Coast here. And any final words that you want to share as we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you for including us in your book.
Thank you so much.
We wish you the best success in this chapter of your life.
Well, thank you. I'm so enjoying these conversations, and I'm thrilled to be able to bring them to a broader audience through this podcast. So thanks so much. And I will keep looking for you and your smiling faces on social media. So thanks again.